morning sun rose gently over Kampala, casting a golden glow on the grand building of Parliament. From her very first day in Parliament, Nakimuli stood out, not because she was the loudest, but because she was among the most intentional. She listened carefully, spoke with clarity, and carried the voices of her people with conviction. Her speeches were never empty. They were filled with lived experience, especially the struggles of women, youth, and the underserved communities she represented. She's remembered to help the Uganda women's parliamentary volleyball team win a gold medal in the East African Parliamentary Games. Nakimuli was not just a participant, she was a builder of ideas. Her work within the National Unity Platform, NUP, became a cornerstone of her legacy. Nakimuli has fought with the NRM regime to make sure that the common people of Kalangala, the fishermen, regain their God-given Lake Victoria. She has disencouraged deforestation and emphasized afforestation so that to guard the islands of Kalangala from natural disasters like floods and heavy wind. She spoke openly about justice, fairness, and the need for accountable leadership. For her, politics was never about power. It was about service. But beyond her public life, Nakimuli was deeply human. She loved laughter. She valued family. She carried herself with humility, never forgetting where she came from. Those close to her remember her as someone who could brighten a room even on the hardest days. Then came the day that shook many. The news of her passing spread quietly at first, then like wildfire across the nation. Parliament fell into a somber silence. The volleyball court, once filled with her energy, stood still. Her seat in the chambers felt heavier than ever. Tributes poured in, from fellow MPs, from her party, from ordinary Ugandans whose lives she had touched. She entered Parliament as a representative, but got out as a hero. In the months leading up to her passing, Nakimuli Hellen seemed to carry an even deeper sense of urgency in everything she did, as if she understood that time was precious. One of her most memorable public moments came during the celebrations of the Kabaka's birthday, a day filled with cultural pride and unity across Uganda. The gathering was vibrant, but when Nakimuli rose to speak, a quiet calm settled over the crowd. Standing before elders, leaders, and citizens, she delivered a heartfelt speech on human rights. She did not shout. She did not dramatize. Instead, she spoke with a steady, emotional conviction that reached into the hearts of those listening. Human dignity, she said, is not a privilege. It is a right that must be protected, not negotiated. She spoke about the struggles of ordinary Ugandans, the mothers fighting to raise their children, the youth searching for opportunity, and the voices that often go unheard. She called for unity, justice, and compassion, reminding leaders that power must always serve the people. She also reminded religious leaders that they had kept down their voices silent over unlawful human abductions of the NUP supporters in fear that the ruling president may not give them cars. The time she finished, many were visibly moved. Some wiped tears, others stood in silent respect. That speech would later be remembered as one of the most sincere reflections of her beliefs. Even in her final days, Nakimuli remained committed to her duties in Parliament. Her colleagues began to notice the strain, moments when she seemed tired, yet refused to step back. She attended sessions, contributed to debates, and remained actively engaged in the flow of Parliament. There was a quiet determination about her. She listened more intently, spoke more deliberately, and carried herself with a calm strength that inspired those around her. She never switched off, one colleague would later say. Even when her body was tired, her spirit was still fighting. Then came the day that would forever mark her final journey. Feeling unwell but still composed, she drove herself to the hospital. That hospital was Alexandra Hospital, a place where many hoped she would find healing. Witnesses later described her arrival as calm but concerning. She walked in with dignity. Medical staff quickly attended to her, and preparations were made for an emergency operation. Inside those hospital walls, the atmosphere grew tense. Outside, word had begun to spread. Leaders, colleagues, and supporters anxiously waited, hoping for good news. Prayers were whispered. Phones rang endlessly. But inside the operating room, the situation became critical. And unfortunately, she did not get out of the hospital. The news broke with deep emotion across the country. Ugandans from all walks of life began to demand clarity surrounding her passing and demanding for release of her post-mortem report from Alexandra Hospital. How did she die? May God grant her an everlasting peace. We shall miss you forever, Helen.